Hello there. Welcome into a Tuesday edition of the show, but it feels like a Monday since we're talking about a Broncos game. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new Extra Sports 1300 app sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and well-being for all. Our time together today, very short. Just got you for an hour, so let's get it done. 719-247-1313 is the number. I will make the time for your reactions to last night's game. And here's mine. The Broncos should have lost that game. I mean, we just need to be real here. The Broncos should have lost that game. The way they approached last night was at best stubborn and at worst arrogant. And I mean on both sides of the football. I thought that Bo Nix certainly made some throws that he has not been making over the last few weeks. These last few weeks where he's been considered the rookie of the surpassing Jaden Daniels for rookie of the year. Some of the passes, like the first interception, okay, that was tipped straight up in the air, kind of a freakish play. Not a great pass, but whatever. But then basically it cancels out because he has that another throw down the far sideline where he throws into double coverage and it probably should have been picked. And then there's another time where he's backed up against his own end zone. He's running right, throws back to the left. What's the cardinal sin of quarterbacking? Throwing across your body, throwing across the field. And then he's like smiling about it. But so I thought in a lot of ways for Bo Nix, I'll talk more about him in a little bit. But I thought it was for him. Maybe it wasn't stubborn, bordering on arrogance as much as reckless, bordering on arrogance for large stretches of that game. But what I will say is that Bo Nix is still a rookie. Still a rookie. So even though it is very different than the Bo Nix you've seen over the past month and a half, you could still give him some wiggle room to have a game like that where he's trying to do some things that he probably shouldn't be trying to do and kind of goes against what has made believers out of many people. His whole identity is, he's going to make some throws that win you the game. And to his credit, he made some of those throws. But he's not going to make the throws that could cost you the game. There is a thin line between Bo Nix and Jameis Winston last night. A thin line. Bo Nix with some of those throws, could have easily suffered the same fate as Jameis Winston. He didn't thoroughly outplay Jameis Winston last night by any stretch of the imagination. But again, you could give him a little bit of latitude considering he is still a rookie. What's Sean Payton's excuse? What's the Broncos coaching staff's excuse? The biggest storyline going into last night's game was Jerry Jeudy. And it would have been the perfect evening for the Denver Broncos after the comments that Jerry Jeudy made for them to absolutely shut him down. I get it's difficult with a talented receiver like Jerry Jeudy. You would, in order to shut him down, need maybe some kind of, dare I say, shutdown corner. Somebody on your roster that you look at and say, if we just put this guy on their guy, we like our chances. If only the Denver Broncos had one of those guys. to be able to match up with Jerry Jeudy, and all of this could have been prevented. Oh, wait, they do. And the times that Pat Surtain was on Jerry Jeudy, other than what those where Jerry Jeudy would go and almost not quite a button hook, but he would go and then get some separation and immediately turn back to the ball. You live with those. That's not Pat Surtain getting beat. What was it? 2 catches, 20 yards. That was it. Levi Wallace putting Jerry Jeudy on Wallace Island led to over 200 yards receiving. Jerry Jeudy had the best game of his pro football life because of Sean Payton's stubbornness bordering on arrogance. Perhaps he didn't want to extend Jerry Jeudy the courtesy or the respect that he would extend. And when I say Sean Payton, Vance Joseph gets wrapped up into this a little bit, certainly. When I say Sean Payton, the coaching staff, but of course, all marching orders come directly from Sean Payton. If Sean Payton saw what was going on, just like you did very early in that game, that Levi Wallace is not going to be able to handle Jerry Jeudy. Sean Payton could have put a stop to it. We've seen Sean Payton get in Vance Joseph's face and demand things out of him. It wouldn't have been out of place. It would have been out of bounds for Sean Payton to go to Vance Joseph and say, stop leaving Levi Wallace on an island with Jerry Jeudy. To the best I can tell, never did that. They didn't even go the next step in the progression. Okay, let's say their plan is Levi Wallace on Jerry Jeudy, which was an awful plan. And the best idea is putting Pat Surtain on him. There's a middle ground. How about some safety help over the top? But no, can't do that. That would be admitting that Jerry Jeudy is talented, and all Sean Payton wants to do is leave no doubt that he made the right decision. Or he's already being extended that. No, there was a time where I said a Jerry Jeudy-like player would come in handy for the Denver Broncos, but I understood why Sean Payton let Jerry Jeudy go. He's trying to build a culture, and Jerry Jeudy was a malcontent. They even mentioned on the broadcast Jerry Jeudy wanted to be traded. We just can't. It's like he's going against the NFC South. He can't leave any margin for you to be like, man, it would be nice to have that guy back. Or maybe it wasn't the best decision ever to let Jerry Jeudy go. Like, I don't know how else, because in that is a level of respect that I'm giving the Denver Broncos defense. What they did last night is so out of character for a team going against a team of the Brown Station, because let's, again, calibrate where the Broncos are in the pecking order. If you are a middling to worst team, the Denver Broncos will beat you. If you are anything above that, Broncos of 2024 will probably lose to you. Pittsburgh, Kansas City, LA, Baltimore. That's where they are. And where they are is fine. It's fine. Again, they're not even supposed to be here with a 75, 77% chance of making the playoffs. They weren't even supposed to be close to here. So it's fine that they only beat mediocre to poor teams. It's fine. The next step in the evolution is going to be bring in more talent, Bo Nix progresses, and you start being the really good teams. That doesn't have to happen this year. So it's fine. So going against a team like the Browns, who even under Jameis Winston, obviously it's been better with Winston than it was Deshaun Watson. But still, this is a team that was 2-2 with Jameis Winston as their starter. Hardly world beaters. So for the Denver Broncos defense to look that poor is out of character for them. And so much of what happened to them last night seemed preventable. Don't give me the Riley Moss is now the most valuable player in the NFL. Would Riley Moss have done a better job against Jerry Jeudy? Sure. Infinitely better? No. So much of the bleeding that took place with the Broncos defense could have been prevented. And why wasn't it? Here's Sean Payton on the decision not to put his all-pro, arguably best in the game corner on a guy that was having the best game of his life. Don't do a win is a win is a win thing. Sean Payton, you're better than that. You're better than that. We've seen what you have done to teams. You comfortably beat Carolina, and you were up there at the podium peeved off at how your team played. So don't win is a win stuff. You could have done better at any point during that game, and you chose not to for whatever reason. And again, stubbornness to arrogance, somewhere on that spectrum. And Jerry Jeudy absolutely eviscerated your team. And you're going to say, well, we got a couple of pick sixes. Well, yeah, kind of goes to my point. If not for the existential crisis that Jameis Winston is having when it comes to pick sixes, the Denver Broncos don't win that game. And he threw them right at Broncos players, especially Benito. I mean, give Benito credit that he was reading Jameis Winston, but the reason he was reading Jameis Winston is because Winston was looking right at him the whole time. Yeah, they were able to get a couple of pick sixes. Thank Jameis Winston for that. That's not a defensive adjustment. That's not great coaching. That's Jameis Winston reverting back to the Jameis Winston. Everyone's saying the full Jameis experience. The full Jameis experience is independent of the team that is going against him. That is solely talking about Jameis Winston as a quarterback and the awful decisions that he can make in the course of a game, even one like last night where he looks so good. Last night didn't have to be like that. I mean, as viewers, it was great, right? It was amazing theater. We don't get a lot of great Monday Night Football games, especially this late in the year. That was a great, entertaining football game. But make no mistake about it. The Denver Broncos should have lost that game. And could you have imagined what that would be? It would be the Christmas Eve game against New England light. It wouldn't be over for this team. But we would be talking about how they blew it. How they had everything in front of them to keep not just the rest of the AFC wildcard contenders at bay, to keep him well back. And they cough up a primetime game at home against an inferior opponent where Jameis Winston throws for 500 yards. At least it seemed like it was 500 yards. The Broncos are fortunate, extremely fortunate. And the silver lining in all this is if you're the Broncos, you would much rather be humbled in the way they were humbled last night while still walking away with the win than taking a loss. But that game was about Jameis Winston. First, second, and third. And then fourth is why didn't Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos do anything to curtail the massive game that Jerry Jeudy was having? Stubbornness bordering on arrogance. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Broncos win last night. The other storyline that I was talking about yesterday going into the game had to do with Bo Nix in the Rookie of the Year race. So what of that now? That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. day after the Broncos defeat the Cleveland Browns, but that doesn't really tell the story now, does it? More on that in a moment. But first, it's the most wonderful time of the year, and you can hear the song in your head when I say that. And we want to make it even better with $1,000 toward your winter wish list. Use it for holiday shopping, travel, maybe a Clark Griswold style holiday display, or to treat yourself. Enter this national contest at extrasports1300.com for a chance to fulfill your winter wish list. Sponsored locally by Downtown Colorado Springs and Downtown CS.com. Let me get to, since our time is so short, I want to make sure that I'm getting to your text messages. This from the 719. How much of that being Broncos allowing Jerry Jeudy to roam free along the countryside was Peyton versus VJ? They'll watch a lot of film during this bye to make sure this doesn't happen again. And I put it this way. Vance Joseph has to be culpable in that last night, for sure, right? But if Sean Payton sees what you and I saw and says this isn't okay, he has the power as the head coach to go to Vance Joseph and say, do something. He doesn't even have to give him his idea, right? He doesn't even have to say, hey, I think that you should put Surtain on him, or I think you should provide safety help. Empower Vance Joseph to make a decision, but let him know that what is going on is not acceptable and it needs to change. And everything I saw was that the Broncos pretty much did the same thing the entirety of the game, which tells me that Sean Payton never went to Vance Joseph and said this isn't okay, which is mind-numbing to me. How is that possible? How can you watch what is going on and not make an adjustment? This is why I can't. It's stubbornness bordering on arrogance. Anybody with a cursory knowledge of football would be able to watch what was going on and say, hey, Broncos should probably do something about that guy. You don't even have to know the backstory of Jerry Jeudy. And just like that guy on the Browns, he's really hurting the Denver Broncos. They should probably try and do something else. And yet they didn't. Why? And no one challenges Sean Payton after that game. Nobody. Nobody presses him. They let him say, well, there are things we look at the film and we may. You need to look at the film to understand what went wrong. I mean, Troy Aikman in Live Time pointed out pretty well. I mean, he even said, even if you're not going to put Pat Surtain on him for whatever reason, which I don't understand why, there are other, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the Ravens game with Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is killing them, and Pat Surtain is nowhere to be found on him. Except this was so much worse with, at least with the Ravens game, it's like, well, yeah, Zay Flowers is a problem, but also we got to worry about Lamar Jackson and we got to worry about Derrick Henry running it down our throats. Like they had other things that they had to figure out. With the Browns, I mean, just think if they limit Jerry Jeudy a little bit, where is that game? Just a little bit. And they just refused. I don't think they, circle back to the text message. I don't think they need to watch film. I think they know exactly what happened. But the question still remains, why did you keep allowing it to happen? They figure out something else against Jerry Jeudy. Safety help over the top, putting Pat Surtain on him. That game is a wrap. That game is done. But again, it's better. It's certainly better from the Broncos' perspective to be humbled in that way after a win and be able to say, you know what, we survived. And isn't that kind of the Broncos in many ways last night? I mean, forget about how prolific Jameis Winston was and the game that Jerry Jeudy had. Just kind of the way that game played out and how the Broncos won. That is kind of how they've existed. Right? They're not the team that makes the catastrophic error that ultimately costs them the game. I go back to the 2 Raiders games, right? Broncos weren't the better team, weren't controlling either of those games until Gardner Minshew threw a pick. It's the same thing last night. Until McMillan had that second pick six. Did you really think the Broncos would win that game? It was not going well for them. But yet, any mistake that they made, even the Jerry Jeudy one, didn't ultimately cost them. But the catastrophic mistake came from the opponent. That's how so many Broncos wins have happened this year. It's their identity. It's just, I look at last night and I'm like, it didn't have to be this way. It didn't have to. Broncos made it more difficult on themselves than it had to be. Now, as far as Bo Nix goes, like I said, some of his cavalier attitude in that game, some of his decision making, you could say, you know what? He's a rookie. Right? So my criticism is more directed at Sean Payton than it is Bo Nix. But let's be honest, Bo Nix made some bonehead decisions in that football game. Thrown across his body and across the field, deep in his own half of the field. The throw into double coverage with Jerry Jeudy. And fine, if Sean Payton wants to take credit for that play call where he ends up getting picked as he's trying to go down the field to Troy Franklin, fine. I'll add it to the list of my grievances and criticisms of Sean Payton last night. But there were two just boneheaded throws that Bo Nix got away with. And last night was an opportunity for him to take full control of the Rookie of the Year race. Prime time, only game in town. Bo Nix could have taken it, and he didn't. That's the reality of this situation. So we have an open competition moving forward for Rookie of the Year. And ESPN showed the graphic last night. You know, Jaden Daniels' numbers are better than Bo Nix's. I don't love that a Rookie of the Year has to be so binary, like stack up the numbers. I don't know if winning should necessarily be that big of a factor, but watching the players, I think, is a prerequisite, not just looking at box scores. I don't want to do that. But the stats are part of it. And Jaden Daniels at that stage of the game, They were showing their stats. Jaden Daniels' stats are better. And that's why I said that why I wasn't ready to fully jump on board with Bo Nix, because he was trending. He's certainly still trending. It's okay to take a step back. He can reclaim the pace that he was on. But he was trending over the last few games to surpass Jaden Daniels and win Rookie of the Year. He did not continue that pace last night. So it's still wide open, and I think you would probably still have to say that Jaden Daniels, if the season ended today, is the Rookie of the Year. I think you would have to say that. But good news for Bo Nix, like there's good news for Sean Payton. You still got to win. You go into the bye week. And Bo Nix said it last night. They try to finish the right way. That includes him. Not a cardinal sin for a young quarterback to have a game like that last night. But it is a missed opportunity because he had a chance in front of a national audience to take that award and put the onus on Jaden Daniels to take it from him. Now he's still playing catch up. That being said, you still see it. The throw to Mims was an unbelievable throw. Have you seen the pictures of where he put that ball? And again, it's the same thing with the defense. Seeing the defense get destroyed like they were by Jerry Jeudy is me saying that the defense is better than that. That my expectations for them are higher than that because they've earned those higher expectations. It's the same thing with Bo Nix. The way he has played for the last month and a half, those decisions that he made in that game are uncharacteristic of this version of Bo Nix. That's what you saw against Seattle and Pittsburgh. But he had some big-time throws. The third down conversions to Cortland Sutton, but the throw to Marvin Mims, that's the one where despite everything else, you're like, if they do this right, he's the dude. If they continue to develop him the right way, which they have, those are big-time throws. And I do think that Sean Payton, you could see more of the trust he has in Bo Nix, but more of the trust that Bo Nix has earned. And that play call down the field where he gets picked when he was trying to throw it to Troy Franklin is the perfect example. Right? That's a situation where a month ago, Broncos are running, Broncos are throwing a screen pass, something like that. And Sean Payton said, go. And now, in the end, he regretted that play call. But that shows the confidence he has in Bo Nix. And that throw to Marvin Mims, it's like that with rookie quarterbacks, right? Takes a couple of deep shots downfield. One he hits to Marvin Mims, which is a huge play in the game. Another one he doesn't hit to Troy Franklin. Still a rookie. 719-247-1313. Take a few more of your texts on the Broncos and the Browns last night. I do want to get, because it's timely, some comments that were made by Boise State's head coach when he was asked to react to what Deion Sanders said Friday after CU's beatdown of Oklahoma State. And why the head coach at Boise State is not making the point that he thinks he's making. That and more of your thoughts on last night's Broncos win next. Broncos making some news today, kind of surprising. They have waived Josh Reynolds, somebody that they had brought in just this offseason. We know the situation that happened with him when the team was in New Orleans. And by all indications, he was a victim in all of that. But I mean, the timing of waiving him, I don't know. I don't want to sit here and speculate that other information came available to the Denver Broncos about that incident, but it could be just something as simple as, look, we found a role for Marvin Mims. Courtland Sutton is Courtland Sutton. We've seen Devon Vele progress over the last few weeks. We want to see more of Troy Franklin. Josh Reynolds wasn't really going to be in our long-term plans anyway. If we're going out and getting another wide receiver this offseason, I think the trade deadline, Sean Payton's comments were an indicator when he said Superman's not walking through that door. I think that's the caliber of player that the Broncos are going to be looking to add this offseason. Be hard to find Superman, but the idea that Josh Reynolds is certainly nowhere close to the type of receiver that's going to improve upon what the Broncos already have with the emergence of Devon Vele, with them figuring out what to do with Marvin Mims. So it could be just something as simple as that. And regardless of what happened in Denver that night when Josh Reynolds and his friends were leaving Shotgun Willie's, I mean, you can make a football argument why bring Josh Reynolds back. It's a crowded room. Broncos have gotten by without him. But the Broncos waive Josh Reynolds. That happened just before I went on air with the show. Couple of your texts here. Brett says, I'm trying to think of what other team in the AFC West has had wins determined by the ineptness of their opponent in the final minutes of the game. Obviously, you're talking about the Raiders. Because it certainly can't be anybody else in that division. Well done. I mean, there's levels to it, but I know that's not why you're texting, to engage in a debate about the Chiefs winning close games and the Broncos winning close games. You know the difference. Very good. Very good. Well done by you. Yeah. I like this. This text came in from the 719 last night about 9 o'clock. What is Vance Joseph doing? PS2 should have been on 100% coverage of Judy. Levi Wallace can't cover total riding a snail. If Denver loses, it's all on Joseph and Vance. Wallace. I'm going to Sean Payton a little bit. But it did not end that way. So now the Broncos head into the bye week. I think given their given the game last night, I think it's probably an even better time to have a bye week. I think mentally they probably need to recalibrate a bit, given the stubbornness, arrogance that they displayed last night. They need to recalibrate, get back to what had gotten them to this point, and they'll get ready for another opponent similar to Cleveland, similar to some of these other teams that the Broncos have made a habit in beating, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. And now the Cincinnati Bengals are in that group as well. And then you have remaining with those 2 games, 2 chances to punch above your weight class with the Chargers and the Chiefs. See if they can get one of those before the end of the season. I don't think they need both to get into the playoffs. But now it's a bye week. Wanted to get this in. So on Friday, Travis Hunter has a massive game, 3 touchdowns, an interception. The Buffaloes absolutely destroy Oklahoma State. And this is what Deion Sanders said after the game about Travis. So the head coach of Boise State, keep wanting to call him Spencer Is it Spencer Danielson? Yeah, Spencer Danielson. He was asked if the Heisman race is over, as Deion Sanders intimated on Friday. Okay, right there. If you're not going to give your closing argument, end with Ashton Jeanty is the best player in college football. And then we're like, okay, we'll wait till after the Mountain West title game. You'll make your final plea, and we'll all make our final judgments on Ashton Jeanty versus Travis Hunter. But he didn't stop there. And I think he made it worse. Here it is again. Now, maybe there are people in Idaho who are going, mic drop, boom, debate over. He's not making the point that he thinks he's making. And he should have stopped. And you heard the hesitation, right? You heard the hesitation. He wasn't going to go into it. He wasn't going to try and have a mic drop moment, and he just couldn't help himself. I love the Mountain West Conference. I do. Okay? This is not meant to disparage that proud conference. Making it to the Mountain West title game is not the accomplishment that he thinks it is. The Colorado Buffaloes fell short of the Big 12 title game to teams that are ranked higher than the teams that Boise State has had to go through. The Big 12 just better. It's better. So there are levels to this. Just getting to your conference championship game is not the be-all, end-all. Okay? It's a great accomplishment what Boise State has done. But let's not pretend that Boise State having to go through the Mountain West and get to the championship game is better than CU just falling short given the relative strengths of the two conferences. Now, Boise State as a team independently can certainly make the case that they would be the best team in the Big 12. They could make that case. College Football Playoff Committee is making that case for them. But to say because we made the Mount West title game, that now Ashton Genty should be the Heisman. Nope. Try another one. Say something else. That's not, no. Colorado had to go through a much more difficult conference as a whole. Both teams that are playing in the Big 12 title game are a notch or more above the UNLV team that Boise State's going against. The Big 12 is a better conference. Would he be saying that? I mean, I think the answer is yes. But it doesn't, like, would he be saying that if Ashton Genty's main competition was Cam Ward? Or if it was Jaden Milroe? I wonder. But it would just be worse. The same premise applies here. There are certainly arguments to be made that Ashton Genty is the Heisman Trophy winner. That is not one of them. And hopefully, when he comes back next week, and for his sake, hopes Boise State wins, because if they lose, then the argument will be, well, you got there and you lost. So is that really that much better than CU falling just short of making it there? But after Boise State wins and Ashton Genty has another great game, then make your statistical case, make your value. And that's why I've said with Ashton Genty, I'm okay with I think Travis Hunter should be, and it's my opinion that he is the Heisman Trophy winner, and I believe he will win. But that's not to say that Ashton Genty doesn't have a compelling case. And in a year where Travis Hunter doesn't do what he did, Ashton Genty would unequivocally be the Heisman winner. Just have bad timing. Happens throughout sports. Some guys have MVP caliber seasons and there's somebody that's just doing something so spectacular that it doesn't matter. You're not going to beat them. And that's what happened this year with Travis Hunter. But that's not to say that Ashton Genty doesn't have a real case to be made. And I think that the best argument is a value argument. Where would Boise State be without Ashton Genty? How much of what they do is based on Ashton Genty as opposed to Travis Hunter? These are very difficult comparisons to make because they're both very important, and you don't want to minimize either one of them. And because that's what Boise State's coach is doing. You don't want to put either of these guys down because they've been so good. I'm not for sharing a Heisman, but this year it would come as close as I ever would to saying split a Heisman. Hopefully he comes back with a better argument because he's going to need one. Because I don't think that the voting right now is as close as some people want to make it out to be. It's not unanimous. I think right now Travis Hunter would win the Heisman comfortably over Ashton Genty. So it's going to take a compelling argument next week to sway anybody, if they're able to be swayed. That is it. We'll pick that conversation up tomorrow and see if Deion Sanders responds to that. More on the Broncos surviving against the Cleveland Browns. Also tonight, Avs taking on the Sabres and the Nuggets taking on the Warriors. So a lot to discuss. More time to do it tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Frank Serratori Show also coming up at 6, followed by Nuggets and Warriors.